Hello, and welcome to the podcast that discusses all things gaming. Coming to you from the home of Indie PopCon, Gen Con, and the gaming capital of the world, we are the Established Facts.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 185 of the Established Facts.
Is it Dawn?
It is Dawn.
Dawn's
Yes,
back.
that's right.
Oh my!
The rumors of my death have been greatly exaggerated,
As they all are.
as they all are. I am so glad. I'm so glad to be back here behind the mic, hanging out with people that I love to hang out with and talk about things that I love to talk about, like gaming. So,
I was going to say, how broad are you going to keep this?
Well, you know.
It's a broad question.
I'm a broad guy.
Hey.
All right, so let's go ahead and start with intros around the table. We'll go from there.
Well, this is Josh.
I'm Avital.
And we do have another friend at the table that may or may not speak up at some point. Our friend Maggie is here with us as well, just hanging out. If you can't tell, there's probably a little bit of noise in the background, but that's because we are actually hanging out at Starbase Indy at the Wyndham West Hotel. If you have not been to Starbase Indy, in general, we'll give a quick plug to it. It's a nice little con. Like it's. There are a few different people hanging out here in the exhibitor hall, and then they've got a vendor hall, and there's a bunch of fun events going on throughout the day. So it's a nice little convention. It's pretty intimate. So yes, Avital.
What I think is cool about Starbase Indy that I did not know before, like yesterday, is they're a not-for-profit. I don't have my phone pulled up, so I don't remember what it is that they support. I think it might be STEM. Yeah.
Yep.
And so when you go to buy a badge, it's $10 plus.
Directly. Oh, okay.
$10 plus. So you only have to pay $10 for a badge, but you can pay more because that
that
goes
is cool.
towards their charity efforts.
Okay. I don't know if I
Which I
knew
thought was
that.
really cool.
That is very cool.
It makes sense that a sci-fi convention is supporting STEM.
Right, absolutely, yeah, and I've just recently kind of gotten more familiar with STEM, mostly because my 9-year-old got a flyer the other day from school for a thing called STEM Scouts, and it's like a club that you pay a hearty amount of money to, but obviously they use it for the program and stuff like that, and it's cool because they also have a scholarship that you can apply for it, and it's just, I mean, it's kind of like a fun club where they talk about all kinds of different, if you're not familiar with STEM, Josh helped me out here.
Science,
that's
technology,
right.
Engineering, and math.
I could not remember if the first word was science, as silly as that sounds.
That's okay.
I can remember the rest, but I can remember that.
I have a
so.
degree that's
I know.
basically in STEM.
I know. That's why I asked you. So that is a very cool thing, and like I said, this convention is pretty close knit. It's a fan-run convention. At one time, I think they had kind of an organizational body that was running the convention, but it's recently, within the last couple of years, or last year, I think, has become more of a fan-based convention run by fans, which I think is great.
And then that's, I believe, also kind of when it turned into more of the charity thing.
Right, yeah. And there's several really cool guests that are here, and there's a vendor hall where you can buy really fun stuff.
I need to go there.
Yeah, they have a couple of game vendors, and there's some people who do is it Adventure Candle Company? I think that's the name of that.
Do they have
the candle
the
company.
cool sense for using when you're doing RPGs?
When Bonnie and I went to
That's
Gen Con,
amazing.
we met.
I want Campfire.
Yeah, we met
But they sell
the
out fast.
people who own Adventure Candle Company, and they actually donated a candle for us to burn during our podcast, which was a campfire candle, which was a lot of really cool. And the candles smell great, and they're wood wick, which means they burn evenly. If you're not familiar with candles, let me give you the anatomy of a candle. And then, anyway, so they have
Wax,
wick, fire.
candle burn.
Candle.
There's the anatomy.
Yeah.
But sometimes they burn crooked, and that's annoying.
That's true. Anyway, they have really great deals on their candles, and I think their large candle is a 60-hour candle.
Wow.
Which is insane to
That's
me.
fantastic.
Right, and they smell great. They've got all kinds of different scents, and they've got a website. I think it's adventurecandlecompany.com, or you can at least Google search Adventure Candle Company
Sure.
and find them. Anyway, so that all being said, speaking of candles, let's talk about gaming.
Yes.
That's right.
That
Way to
makes
light the fire.
Yeah,
makes
right.
sense.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yep. I knew we'd tie it in somewhere. So, anyway, one of the things that obviously a lot of our listeners and all of us here at the table have been really ramping up for is the holiday season. We just had Thanksgiving. And Starbase Indie is to give you a time reference. Starbase Indie is always the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday after Thanksgiving. So, so Thanksgiving has come and gone. I had a good Thanksgiving. I had 2 good Thanksgivings, really. And we hope that all of you had a really good opportunity to see family and spend some time with them and eat some really good foods. But one thing that seems to be pretty prevalent, at least with a lot of us, is playing games with our family during the holiday season when we get together for a Christmas party or Thanksgiving or any sort of holiday celebration. New Year's, I know, is usually kind of a time that we try and carve out to do a game night every once in a while. So what I would love for us to talk about are some of the ins and outs for the types of games that we shoot for when it comes to playing games with family. I know for Josh, you've got some pretty eccentric gamers in your family and your in-laws, which I love. So you guys play kind of a different menu of games than a lot of people. So tell us about it.
I would love to say there's a different menu, but this year there were about 8 to 10 of them that played apples to apples for 4 hours.
Wow.
That is extensive.
That's a lot of hours.
It's
a lot.
tough when they
But-
run out of cards.
Knowing the people that play in your family group, I can just imagine some very different apples to apples playing styles.
It's so interesting to watch because this is probably the first year I purposefully sat out because I wanted to play Fantastic Beasts and Perilous Pursuit that we did on our last episode.
Right.
I wanted to play that with Carrie, who had not played it since Gen Con. I was like, I'm going to make it a point to give her the opportunity to play this, so she's going to be there. But throughout the apples to apples game that goes over there, each individual that's playing, those who haven't played apples to apples, the premise is you're given basically a descriptive word, and everyone else has a noun that they throw in, and the person judging chooses which noun they think best fits that adjective. Well,
using
Best
whatever
fits or is funny as
Well,
right,
whatever.
using whatever tool they use to be a judge.
so when you have a 12 or 13-year-old who's doing it just purely because it's funny, and then a 36-year-old who or older who are doing it because it's the most logical.
When you're playing apples to apples with Spock and Wesley Crusher,
Yeah, it's kind of so there was some pretty entertaining things. I remember not this year, but the year before. A brother-in-law Chris had the word inspiring, and my other brother-in-law John just told everybody at the table, said, just don't throw the junk cards you have. I've got this. And John handed in Indianapolis 500. Anyone that knows Chris knows that
yeah.
it didn't matter what the word was. Indianapolis 500 was going to win.
Yep.
So I know that happens, and I've also seen that last year we played $1 Million, but without the kids, which that's a Rooster Teeth game. If you haven't checked out, it's you win $1 million, but something crazy happens, and it's everything fun and silly to adult and crass, and it's a very entertaining party game. And then there are other games. This year it was Fantastic Beasts and Apples to Apples that made the appearance, and both went really well. Fantastic Beasts, we did successfully win, even though I think we determined we were playing on super hard mode because one of the action die for when the Beast action goes off, there at the top of the Beast's card is when it rolls on your turn, and then at the bottom on the Beast's turn, something else could happen So one of them,
Did you capture the Gaforn?
we did not have the Gaforn this time. And I love how you made that callback. Good, it's good.
I
You
got
weren't even there,
I
but
wasn't.
it's a good callback. But one of them was Escape 2. If you rolled it on your turn, it's Escape 4. If you roll it on the beast's turn, but we a couple times did Escape 4, so we almost lost this particular beast, and it was just funny because apparently we didn't realize that till 4 beasts in that we were playing that wrong. But
So-
we still won.
So I have a question about the Fantastic Beasts game.
Yeah.
Is it essentially Harry Potter Pokemon?
No.
No,
Okay.
no. So
It is
imagine
not.
King of Tokyo
Sure.
was in the Fantastic Beast realm, but
Okay.
instead of attacking each other, you're using the dice pool to capture the beasts. So you're building up actions
It is.
So, for example, one of the actions is a capture 1 or a capture 3. You're trying to bring the monster, the beast, or whatever, closer to the case.
Gotcha.
So you're doing things like either shielding yourself from the beast attack, trying to capture them, gathering insight, which gives you little bonuses, or trying to distract the beast. And depending on which character you're playing, for example, Jacob's really good at distracting, but Newt is not.
Gotcha.
So,
So what you're saying is, you're a wizard or no mage.
you're a wizard, Harry.
Wow. So you're a wizard or no mage who is seeking the capture of magical beasts that are walking around in the world, and in order to do so, you have to either seduce them in or just act quicker than they can react. Got it.
Something
so
like
it's
that.
Yeah.
so it's Pokemon.
Not really.
I mean,
But
would you claim the Fantastic Beasts movies are just glorified Pokemon movies?
because if so, then I
If
would
the
say you
entire-
haven't seen them.
If the entire movie is them trying to seek all of the magical beasts in the world and becoming the greatest magical beast trainer they can ever be, then absolutely.
Wow.
That's not the premise.
I know.
Newt
I know.
Scamander,
I
Pokemon
tease.
trainer.
That's it. That's it.
Terrible.
Never beat the Elite Four. Right?
It-
Salazar Slytherin, Rowena Ravenclaw. They're the Elite
Because
Four.
they're dead.
You're terrible.
Oh, man. Anyhow,
Go
I
on to the
apologize.
next question before
Yes,
this devolves any
absolutely.
further. Or maybe evolves any further.
Yeah, I like what you did there. Glad you're on board. Okay. Well, Avital, I know that you have several celebratory things that you do through the holiday season. What sort of gaming opportunities do you have crop up when you meet with family or friends, or even like, I don't know, I know you work at a few different places. Do they ever do like holiday parties where you get a chance to kind of sit down and play games and stuff like that?
At work, no. I don't know, UPS. I don't know, when is their time?
I don't know.
During
I wasn't
Christmas,
sure.
You know?
Yeah, I wasn't sure.
And Penn
Yeah, that's
Station.
true,
And
no.
Penn Station is difficult because when would you have a holiday party? Because we're open for, food till the evening, right?
Right.
But no, with family, it's generally probably the most common game that we play is catchphrase, especially with my mom's family. Simply because it's easy to get a lot of people involved, and like the younger kids, even if they sometimes need a little help, they can still play it. And in case anyone is unfamiliar with catchphrase, it is a game where you have a word and there is a little electronic thing that you hold that has a word, and you have to get the other people on your team to say the word without saying any part of the word. It's relatively simple.
Right.
But obviously sometimes it can be more difficult depending on the word. And sometimes kids, a lot of times they don't know words and they have to skip to the next word, and then that runs you out of time, and
Right.
et cetera, et cetera. But it can be a fun game simply because it's easy to involve a lot of people. Like you can get a whole living room circle full of people to play, just as long as it's an even number, and it works out well. And it is pretty much like the one we play the most.
Okay.
We don't play as many games like with my dad's family or here at home, simply because it always ends up with like my nephews just like playing whatever and us just hanging out and watching them play. with their toys and things like that. But Catchphrase is the one we play the most often.
Okay. All right, that's cool. So you guys do some party game stuff and
Yeah, I think for games with family, especially because most of my family members are not quote unquote gamers.
right.
Party games are the way to go.
Right. They're kind of a good entry level for fun and for strategy.
Right. I mean, like, I tried once to get my family, like my extended family, not my closer family, to play One Night Ultimate Werewolf. Granted, I had never played it before. I had been given it as a gift. And a couple of my one in particular, simply, I don't know, didn't want to play that much and was just like, what's the point of the game? I'm like, well, why should I do that? I'm like, because that's how you play the game.
Right.
Like,
Right.
if you don't, get interested in the game and actually work on making it fun, then okay, yeah, you're not gonna. And it didn't help that I hadn't actually played before, and I was just very frustrated and haven't played that game since.
Yeah, I understand. I like One Night Ultimate Werewolf when you play in the environment that it is best received, but that's kind of a tough game sometimes for people to wrap their head around.
Yeah. And like I said, I hadn't played it before.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, I tend to kind of lean more towards like the what I like to call gateway games or
Right.
entry level board games. A lot of times
Absolutely.
I'll fall back on like King of Tokyo or we have like Uno and
Oh, yeah.
for those of you who are Uno
Definitely.
fans, check out Dos. It's a real game and it's a lot of fun.
I know it's a real game and it's made by them, but it sounds like a joke.
I know.
The new game. You've played
Dos.
Uno? Try Dos. Like, it just sounds like
It's
a joke.
good. It's a fun game too. So there are a lot of games like that I'll Love Letter things. Honestly, I pack the same games in my like travel game bag when I go to a con that I would take to like Thanksgiving dinner at an uncle's house or something like that, because again, I think the key to gaming with family during the holidays or gaming with friends during the holidays is playing simple games that don't necessarily take a lot of explanation. There's not a ton of mechanics because you don't get lost in the sauce.
Or a lot of energy.
Yeah, that's true.
If
Yeah,
you're just stuffing yourself full of food, you don't necessarily want to
that's true.
even do that much mental calisthenics.
Right, that is true. That is very true. Yeah, and I think you hit on a very good point, Avital. You never really know what everyone's level of commitment is or knowledge base is when it comes to playing different games, different board games, and things like that. Now, I guess my next question is: what are some games that we all have in our game library that we would like to introduce some of those family that we enjoy playing games with? If we had a Christmas party, something like that coming up, what's a game that you have played recently that your family has not gotten a chance to play that you want to teach them? Josh, do you have
Sheriff of Nottingham.
Oh yeah, man.
If you've not played Sheriff of Nottingham, it is a bluffing game about collecting like resources like apples and cheese and this and that and the other, but you're trying to hide it from the sheriff if you get stolen stuff. Like you can get regular things,
Contraband,
whatever,
yeah.
contraband is
Yeah.
what they call it. And it's really a lot of fun. There's like 4 or 5 different. Everybody plays a different character, but each person is for the round. You're the sheriff, and then it turns to the next person. You're the sheriff.
Okay.
And
The sheriff is not only the authoritative figure at the table, but it's also the timer for the game. So once everybody's been a sheriff twice, the game's over.
Okay.
when it's over with, it's a victory point condition.
Yeah.
But
Nice.
you are trying to convince or bribe the sheriff to keep whatever's in your pouch. So you hand your pouch to the sheriff. The sheriff is he's not allowed to look at it. He just by shake and feel or whatever and what he thinks of you. You tell him there are 3 apples, 1 chicken in there, and he either believes you or calls you a liar. And if he looks inside it and is wrong, something happens. But if he's right and finds contraband, you lose the contraband.
Yeah. And you have to pay him a fine.
Right.
Yeah. So there's a money exchange detail to the game where you can bribe the sheriff, or if when you declare what you have in your bag, the rule is you have to declare. You can only declare a legal object. You have to declare at least 1 legal object, and you cannot declare more than 5 objects. So you can so you would say, and you can't. It's all got to be the same. So you could say, I have 5 apples. You couldn't say, I have 4 apples and a loaf of bread. But you could hide 4 apples and a loaf of bread in your bag and say, I have 5 apples. Now, it's all considered not contraband, but it's all considered a bluff to the sheriff if you were to do something like that. The difference would be all you would have to pay fine-wise is for what you didn't declare. But then, yeah, if you have contraband, it's so contraband could be anything from like rye bread and a royal rooster to like crossbows and weapons and stuff like that. Yeah, it's fun. It's a good game.
It's a good game. And the standard box is, I think, 4 players, and then I think
and
they
then
released an expansion to do 2 more.
They have a Merry Men expansion. I think they let you do up to 6.
So I think that would be a really fun one to play with family, as long as you don't take it too seriously.
Sure.
You're purposefully messing with each other.
Right.
We've commented on this before. Competitive with a sense of humor is different than serious competition.
Right. Absolutely. Because it's Sheriff of Nottingham. The purpose is to get away with what you can get away with. Sometimes we've played games where the person who won literally never had contraband, always declared exactly what they had in their bag, and they won. Because you also get bonus points for like the largest collection of specific things. But then we've also played games where it's like, oh, they have 15 pieces of contraband in front of them, and the sheriff just let them go. So yeah, that is a really fun game, actually.
Oh, that's super awesome.
Although, I don't know, I just have a feeling, well, at least one member in particular of your family group is not necessarily that casual at competitive games.
Yeah, it's not Risk. It's not Axis and Allies. It's what can I get away with?
And I have a few others in our family group that just prefer not to lie, so they don't play games like that.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
And I mean, a bluff versus there's a whole philosophical conversation there. A bluff for a game's sake versus actually lying to somebody.
Sure.
Right.
But I get it. But I still think that because there are multiple games that can be played, I think that would be a fun one to be played with those.
Yeah, that's a good one. Avital, do you have one?
You could totally have.
I haven't been playing a lot of games lately or anything, but honestly, I think the Fantastic Beasts game is a lot of fun, and I know I have several members, even of my immediate family group, like my sister-in-law and my brother and stuff that Harry Potter and that world and everything, and because I like competitive cooperative games, I don't like competitive games, and that one is extremely cooperative. Extremely. It's great. I know I would enjoy playing it, and simply because of the world that it's in, and because they like games and stuff, that they would enjoy playing that as well.
Okay.
I think it would be cool.
Oh, thanks.
I think of the games I own,
That's okay.
because my first response was going to be Zombicide. Because I love that game, and it's cooperative, and there's a simple level up system in it, but I don't own a copy of Zombicide.
No, I don't know. Fantastic Beasts.
Yeah.
I own both.
Of the games that I own, Mysterium is probably a game that I would really love to teach a lot of people. I was actually, Joshy and I had talked, and I was going to try and get over to your guys' house on Thanksgiving to hang out and play games like all of us, but then we ended up having to get our house cleaned up and ready for our Friday night group and stuff, so it was a little tougher to get over there. But anyhow, Yeah, Mysterium is probably one of my new favorite large group games because it'll play up to 7,
Okay.
which is really awesome. And it's a cooperative game. You're all trying to help each other figure out who the killers are, things like that. And it's a lot of fun because the person who's playing the ghost is not talking at all, like is not supposed to talk. But they're giving you clues based on different thematic art piece cards. So sometimes, you might look at a card and it might, like, all of your cards may have, they're called vision cards. All of your cards may have, like, a green hue, so maybe the ghost is trying to tell you, hey, pick the one with a green background or something like that. Like, it's a really fun kind of interpret the visions that you're getting style of game. So yeah, and it plays I think 45 minutes to an hour, even with a full table. I've taught that game, and we played it in less than an hour and a half, which can be tough when you're playing a game like that
Yeah.
with people who never play. And I was teaching like 3 people at the time, so it can as we all know as gamers, any game that you're trying to teach pretty much double the time that you would normally play it, unless it's Flux, and then that game can take 5 seconds or 5 minutes, so
Or an hour and a half.
or an hour and a half.
I love Flux, but wow.
That's right.
Flux is a good one, too. Like, from
Sometimes-
a game perspective,
Sometimes you can deal the cards and set out and then it'd be done.
that's it. And we have a winner.
Oh, I have it. Okay, I win.
Next.
Who wants to play again?
I'm going first. I think Deb gets on me every time. I'm like, that is one of the core rules of the game of Flux. The person who says I'm going first goes first.
That's it. It's in the rules.
Fantastic.
It says determine who wants to go first. For example, the first person who says I want to go first. Okay.
That's great.
Well, so many games do that on the mechanic of, well, this person's the youngest, or it's the person who enjoys this phase of the moon,
Or
or
Cards
something
Against
crazy.
Humanity.
Speaking of Cards Against Humanity,
Go read the rules if
I-
you don't know how they determine who gets to go first. Anyways,
I've
Yeah.
not opened it yet, but I bought Cards Against Muggles.
Against Muggles?
Cards
Nice.
Against Muggles, and it's an entire sheet, like one of the bigger, the larger, blacker box or whatever size.
The bigger, blacker box.
That one, bigger, blacker box. It is that size of
Wow.
cards. It has like 1,000 some odd cards
That's
in it.
impressive.
insane.
And they made one for Cards Against Disney too that I didn't find out about till after I purchased
Wow.
Muggles. So I'm like, let me see how Muggles works before I do Disney, because anyways, I had to buy it. It's all in the Harry Potter font and everything. It's
Oh,
pretty
that's
entertaining.
Nice.
That's great.
That's great.
Yeah, Cards Against Humanity is if you have all adults that are the kids have all gone to bed type thing. It's another great family,
Sure.
family
It is a great, good, like,
in quotes.
casual group party game.
Yeah, absolutely.
That one.
Apples to
I
apples
don't,
if you have no soul.
I don't ever play Cards Against Humanity like with win conditions. Really, we just kind of
Yeah.
play it to
Yeah.
laugh.
Well, and that's why our Apples to Apples game went 4 hours. is 'cause
Sure,
they just
'cause
wanted to
you
play
just
until
play.
somebody said, "Let's stop."
Yeah.
Hey, that works. You know?
Yeah. Another game that I really enjoy playing in a large group setting that I haven't gotten to play recently very much is definitely one of Deb's favorite games.
Are you a werewolf?
Yeah. I was actually just last night. I was having a conversation with a couple people at my home. We were talking about Are You a Werewolf and Mafia, and relating back stories of our epic games of werewolf and things like that. And I just really love that game. And I know that you, Josh, specifically have some people in your family that, like you had already mentioned, are not fans of deception style games like that, and I totally respect that. My wife Bonnie, at times she is not a fan of deception style games like that for particular reasons, but then there are times when she's totally willing to just jump in and go. Are You a Werewolf has definitely always been a game that even if I don't get to play, it's almost always in my back pocket. You know, especially when we're in a situation where we're going to have 7 or more people hanging out and just, you know, for the purpose of playing games. I just think that's a really fun game that it's super easy to learn. There's no complicated mechanics other than close your eyes, open your eyes, point at somebody, and they get eliminated. So
True. Well, and with Are You a Werewolf, you have to be okay, not only with deception, but I know that Deb and I went through a particular situation where we had to tell each other not to ask each other a certain question.
Right.
Well, because we just can't flat out ask each other if they're the werewolf, because over a certain amount of time of being with someone, you may not be able to tell for sure if they're lying, but certain questions, you know, like we were, are you a werewolf? No. Okay, you're a friggin' werewolf. Great.
Right.
Like, it totally ruins the experience when you figure it out that quickly. So, but it's still good and fun, and it's a great social kind of experiment game. It's not necessarily to see how far someone's willing to go, but how serious someone can take something, and you know what they're willing to do to win.
Sure. Quick question, kind of a follow-up, and I know we've talked about several different games already. If a lot of the games that we've been talking about are fairly straightforward, somewhat simple mechanics that are easy to explain, easy to learn how to play. If you were going to introduce and forgive the vernacular, a crunchy game, if you were going to introduce a game that had more detailed strategic mechanics, and I know, Josh, strategy games like Risk and things like that are not necessarily your go-to, but, for example, a game like Fiasco, where there are a lot of different things going on, what sort of game with some pretty in-depth mechanics would you be willing to present to your families as an option to play at a holiday or something like that?
Well, honestly, like, I mean, you mentioned Fiasco, but I think with at least some of my family groups, something like that, like, I might actually be willing to try that, because, so you know how I ran my first game at Fear the Con, and I was telling my mom about it while we were driving to the lake to spend time with her family in Missouri. And she's like, do you have the things with you that you need to run it? And I'm like, I mean, I guess, like, I have it. It's all on digital. It's in the cloud. She's like, I want you to run it for our family tonight.
That's fun.
So I ended up running that again in the Lake of the Ozarks, and it was in the game. My game happened in the Lake of the Ozarks for my family members.
That's cool.
And
that's meta. That's meta right
there. and like, it honestly went pretty well. Like, even though, like, I think most of them had never really, I think maybe my one cousin had done like a D&D or role-playing game before.
What was the system that you used? I know I was going to be the
Quags.
Quags.
Quags,
Okay.
Yeah. Which is real simple.
Yeah.
Which is why it was the first game I ever played in.
Yep.
Josh was there, which is why I picked it. Since I know it, basically.
Right.
I've made an impact.
And like, that went pretty well. And I think, even though, like, there are a lot of things happening in Fiasco, like, it's still not exactly too complicated. Like, okay, decide your relationship with the person on your right out of maybe a list of relationships.
Sure.
It's honestly, it's not that complicated.
Right.
It is, but it isn't in a way. And something like that is something that I could see taking to a family, even though it's, like, kind of out of the wheelhouse of what we would normally do.
Well, and the cool thing about that, too, is, especially if you play any of Zach Lorton's iterations of Fiasco, you can play with 900 people at the same time.
Right, yeah.
So if you have a fairly large family gathering, with, like, Fiasco in particular, you know, there are some really cool modifications that have been made for that system that you could play a pretty big group. And Quags, and really, as long as you are, as a GM, understand the complications that you're going to run into playing with a large group of people, really any role-playing system is usable, but I like Quags because it is quick. It's a short order role play game. So there's not, it's crunchy in the extent that it's a role play game, so you have to use your imagination. There are no borders of what's going to happen.
Right.
But the mechanics of the game are pretty straightforward and simple, which is kind of cool.
Right.
I have two. One was a Mayfair Games game, Lords of Vegas.
Oh my gosh, we haven't played that game in so long.
Lords of Vegas.
I love that game.
The premise is you're trying to build up casinos in Las Vegas, and you're doing it via die rolls.
Roll, yeah.
Die rolls and choosing particular colors and cards and stuff, whatever. It was a fun strategy game that I could get behind, and I'm not big on the resource collection thing, but I really enjoyed this because just to see the kind of the Las Vegas form itself as you're playing the game, I think it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And then the second one, on a similar mechanic, again, part of me thinks that mechanics really are a big thing that pull people in.
Yeah.
But this one's mechanics and content. I think Star Trek 5-Year Mission, another Mayfair game, because it can be played with, I think, 6 or 7 players as well. And though it's dice rolling there, you got to really pay attention to what the next person's going to be able to do and what their special abilities are going to be able to do, and being able to accomplish those missions, which we're still batting about 30 or 40% on that game as it is.
Well, we started in a slump because we played that game literally,
0-5.
I think 5 times and then lost every time.
So bad.
Oh my god.
Well, and the big one that hits us on it is there are 2 cards in it that our communications go down. Ooh. Which means you can't talk.
Yeah.
So
it says you can't communicate,
you can't
but
communicate.
we've house ruled it to say you can't talk because that's just wrong.
Yeah, I mean, what are you supposed to do if you can't? Yeah.
If you can't at all.
There's at least people around. Like, we can go find each other and talk. But so we turned it into a big mining game at that point. But I think both of those are strategic, but I think the key there is mechanic. You don't want to be bogged down by the mechanic to allow people to just have a good time.
I'm trying to think of any game outside of a role-playing game that I have that is a really crunchy strategically, or I think the closest thing, and it sounds really silly, but I think the closest thing that I have that may be like high strategy would, other than Monopoly.
I was just to say
Other than Monopoly.
No.
Other than Monopoly, I think honestly something like Red Dragon Inn is probably because
I could see that.
Because even though the gameplay is you discard cards from your hand, you draw up to 7 cards, you play an action, everything is spelled out in front of you on your character card.
Have a drink, take a drink.
Yep.
Right, but each individual, if you're not familiar with Red Dragon Inn, each standalone game has 4 unique characters, which come with 4 unique character decks built around the theme of that trope. And there are 7 different Red Dragon Inn games at this point, not counting the what are called companion decks or ally decks, which are individual standalone characters that you can get. So you could technically buy 4 allies without buying a Red Dragon Inn and still be able to play Red Dragon Inn, which is really fun. So I think that game would probably be the most strategic game that I own because of the individuality of each deck. And because I own 5 of them. So I have 22 characters because I've also got a couple of allies. I think that's another really fun party game because Red Dragon Inn lends itself to actually be able to play 22 people at one time because you're all playing a different character,
right.
And you can affect so many people so quickly. And it seems like a game that also has kind of a cascading element to it, whereas where when your first person gets eliminated from the game, it doesn't seem to take a lot of time for the next 20 people to die off.
Or pass out.
Or have no money and get kicked out. Yeah, it's a really fun game. So yeah, I would have to say Red Dragon Inn is probably my choice for games that I own. A game that Josh hasn't brought up is one of Deb's favorite games as well, that I think has a lot of mechanic element to it, is Formula Day.
Oh, Formula Day.
That game is a lot of fun, but it is a little bit more crunchy with the mechanics of the gameplay.
Yeah, and depending on how difficult you want to make it, it can be even more crunchy than the way we normally play it.
The tracks change the way that you play. The type of cars or the lineup of your gears changes the way that you play. We haven't played that game in a long time.
I actually took it to work and played it with some coworkers, and we had an absolute blast with it because one guy eventually realized he only had like 5 hit points left, so he just threw it into 6th gear and tried to speed through.
Right.
He almost made it through the last turn, but yeah, so you really got to pay attention to that one. And yeah, it's not super crunchy, but it is strategic to the point that you have to make sure you know what die and what gear you're in and everything associated with that. That's a really fun one. I still need to get printed off. I have PDF
the
copies.
Indy 500?
I do.
Yeah,
I have
that's what I
PDF
thought.
copies of the Indianapolis one that was released. So it's called Formula D now.
Yeah.
It was Formula Day
Because
in its
it was
French
a
release.
French game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they had 2 Indianapolis tracks, one for the Grand Prix track and then one for the actual oval.
Right.
And I have a PDF copy of it that I just need to print. So I just haven't done it yet. Print it on a poster. I think that'd be fun to put out.
That would be fun. You know what would be really... I think your wife would get a kick out of it. I think you would get a kick out of it. And I just thought about this. If somebody could 3D print the Indy 500 track for Formula Day, and you could play like a 3-dimensional Formula Day, that would be cool.
It'd take a lot of plastic.
It would, yeah. I think that's a really fun game. That I realized this the other day when I was cleaning up for our Friday night dinner / Thanksgiving thing. We took all of the board games out of my living room, and I set up a table in my garage to set them on because we're going to be doing some changes in our living room for storage. We're looking at getting a Calyx. Yeah, because those things are just...
Now's a good time. I have a coupon for $25 off. You spend $100.
Noted. Okay.
But it's this weekend, so you might have to make a trip up there.
We'll see. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, so we're looking at changing some storage in my living room, and so I took about 90% of my board games and set them in my garage on a table, and I just, I told Bonnie, I said, if people want to come over and they want to play different games that aren't out, because we kept like 8 or 9 games out, I said they can just come back here and grab a game and bring it back out. It was not a big deal. But I started going through and piling up my games, and I was like, man, there is a ton of stuff here that I have not played in so long, and they're all great games. But it's just, and I'm not the kind of person who typically will get rid of a game just because I haven't played it in forever. I'm usually the kind of person that looks at that game and goes, I really need to play that next weekend or something like that,
right.
So there was a lot of stuff that I was moving around. I was like, man, I miss playing this game. It's been too long. So
well, we just put most of our board games into storage as we're getting ready to move.
Right.
And yet, if you open up our closet that had games in it, I think I've received probably 10 board games since we put stuff in it.
That's great.
Either Kickstarters or just like, oh, this is a really good deal,
right.
Or Kevin's like, hey, you want to take advantage of this?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Sucker.
Speaking of Kickstarter, so I love Kickstarter, but I had not sponsored anything on Kickstarter up until Tiny Epic Mechs.
Oh, yeah?
Yes. I backed that for my first Kickstarter.
They're a neat company.
Oh
Game
my
on Games.
Gosh.
They're neat.
I am so excited about that game. I played Tiny Epic Zombies with our buddy Alan, and I was like, yeah, this is really cool. Like the fun meeples, and you can attach weapons to them and walk them through this thing. And then he goes, yeah, well, they're getting ready to launch their Tiny Epic Mechs, and I love mechanized warfare stuff. I don't play like miniature games or anything like that, but I've always loved that idea and that concept. And I backed that game, and when I checked it, I backed it, and it was at like 4,000% or something.
Yeah.
But I think their goal was 15,000, and I think they ended up raising 550,000,
Gee
Wow.
whiz.
something like that.
Yeah,
for that
it's
game.
a lot of money.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. That'll be a really fun game that we'll get
All
to play.
the stretch goals.
Yeah, and the cool thing is with the stretch goals, it adds I think 2 or 3 different players as well.
Nice.
So I'm really stoked about that. Of course, it'll be next year before I get it, but it's okay. I'm anticipating that as being one of my hot games of 2019. So, you know what? And speaking of that, we can segue into kind of the getting closer to the close. What are some games that we are excited? You know, it's Thanksgiving, and as we know, Thanksgiving means that Christmas is around the corner. When Christmas gets here, New Year's is 2 weeks away or a week away. And so, what are some games that we are kind of thinking about that are going to be coming out in the near future, 2019, something like that? Video games, board games, anything like that. Is there anything that's on your radars for fun games to play for next year?
Kingdom Hearts 3.
Okay.
I've not played. So they just released a PlayStation 4 collection that has all 9. There have been 9
Really?
Kingdom Hearts games.
I haven't played any.
Oh yeah, it was $40 and it gets you all 9 of them for PlayStation 4. Yeah,
I have a PS4.
I know you do.
And I've only ever played Kingdom Hearts, the very first one, and I thought it was the coolest game.
Oh yeah. Well, the third one they're bringing in the Pixar characters.
Oh, that's cool.
I'm so excited.
I have only shown the trailer to my daughter once,
Yeah, and she's ready
she's
for
stoked.
it. She's.
She's stoked.
What are you doing to your daughter?
Well, I know.
The best thing.
Not only that.
Turning her into a PS4 player.
Yeah, I know better. That said, Kingdom
I hate
Kingdom
you.
Hearts 3 is going to be on both consoles. So calm
Oh, that's
down.
cool.
So it's
That's
all
cool.
right.
That's cool.
This coming from the guy who has a PS4 Pro and an Xbox One X. It's okay.
Right.
Which, by the way, if you haven't seen, those are really steeply discounted this weekend
No,
for
I know
Black
that.
Friday.
Oh, are they really?
Yes.
I don't need that.
Anyways, so Kingdom Hearts
Check
3,
your Cyber Monday
100%,
sales.
because they're also doing Pirates, the Pirates of the Caribbean characters. You're going to
Okay.
work with Jack Sparrow.
So
also.
Jack Sparrow will have his own key sword.
Yeah.
That looks like a rum bottle.
Either way, I'm super excited about it. I don't like every time I see a trailer. I've only played part of the first one, but I bought the
Same.
collection. I'm still in the middle of playing Spider-Man PS4 because apparently I'm going to 100% that game. I've never 100%ed a game in my life, but I'm going to 100% Spider-Man. But yeah, Kingdom Hearts 3 all the way.
All right, well, you stole Avital's, obviously. No,
Well,
I'm just kidding. I'm only kidding.
I haven't played any video games in a really long time, but I mean, I have just seen things about people being really excited for that game, and it looks so cool. And I mean, I didn't finish playing through Kingdom Hearts, but my brother did, of course, and I watched him a lot. But I just love the whole concept of it. Honestly, I mean, I always have enjoyed things that like bring characters and universes together. Like, it's so fun to me, which is part of the reason why like I really enjoy like the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Sure.
And,
Yeah.
I mean, I never was into comics as a kid, but it's been 10 years and I've enjoyed all of the movies. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. That's crazy. My gosh.
Oh, I still haven't seen Ant-Man and the Wasp.
I haven't either.
See it.
I know. Jason's probably going to get it on Blu-ray, so
There you go.
Okay.
we'll watch it then. He hasn't seen it either,
So good.
because I go see them more movies with him. So
Right.
Now, that movie, good as it is, it can kind of stand alone. But as soon as you see the post credits, it ties itself
that's what I've
completely
heard.
in. Yep.
That's what I've heard. Anyways, Don.
Well, I already said Tiny Epic Mechs as
that's
one
right.
of my anticipated games.
Zombicide Invaders is coming out next year too. It's an alien-based Zombicide.
Yeah.
It'll be good.
Yeah. You know
Alien
what?
Zombies. That's great.
I don't know if it's launching next year, but I'm actually anticipating getting into some second ed Pathfinder stuff. I want to check
Yeah.
out some second ed, even if it doesn't come out next year.
It does.
Does
It's
it?
due for Gen Con next
Okay.
year. And I have all the playtest material if you want to
Okay,
try.
I definitely want to check that out because as a role player, as you know, I love playing different iterations of the same game. Just because Paizo publishes Pathfinder 2 doesn't necessarily mean we're going to convert wholeheartedly to Pathfinder 2 right away, but I know that there's a lot of things that we're going to end up kind of converting or adopting into our normal game system stuff.
And
to
if
kinda
we're
get
planning
used
on
to.
doing Society, we're going to have to.
Oh yeah, I know that. Yeah. Which is fine, and that might be kind of neat to be able to convert. Which, ironically enough, cleaning up my living room, I actually found my PFS binder that I couldn't find during Gen Con, which is sad because I looked in the exact place that I found it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I was really
Yay.
disappointed, but I was.
That's how
I was
men
glad.
find things.
That's it. I was really glad that I found Dell underneath my couch. I was like, great, okay. At least I don't need all my game logs now. That's awesome.
One rough night of partying.
Well, you know, especially with 3 kids. They
no, I was talking about
hard.
Dell.
They go. Oh yeah, well.
Under the couch.
We don't talk about that. Those Tiny Epic mechs, Pathfinder 2. I am definitely excited to see what additional Starfinder stuff is coming out because they've been rolling out a ton of material for
Play
that.
Starfinder so bad.
Yeah. So yeah, and you know, it's still kind of, you know, it's late in 2018, but there's still time to kind of look at some stuff that's on the calendar for 2019, which is exciting. I know for Joshie and I, we're also kind of integrating a lot of our improv stuff into our convention going as well. So yeah, I mean,
Dual purpose, baby.
yeah, absolutely. So a few quick things before we wrap up. If you did not make it to Starbase Indy, you can definitely still see us at PopCon Fort Wayne, which is the 29th and the 30th of December. I know Josh and I will be there. I think Avital is... there's a
Really
smidgen
small
of a chance
Really
she
small chance.
might be there. But if not, she'll at least be there in spirit. I know my brother has shared some interest with possibly coming up if he can get off work. But yeah, we will have a presence up there in Fort Wayne, which I'm really excited about because I have not gotten to go to Fort Wayne for a convention, but I know that they hold several of them, and I hear good things about them every time. So I'm really kind of interested to see how that's going to turn out. And I know PopCon is lining up to be a really good show. Make sure you check them out online. And then outside of that, I think that's pretty much it for the rest of our year, other than just recording, getting some episodes in. I know Josh is moving into his new home,
Well, and
so
yeah.
that will be a logistic.
Well, as a result,
set up.
we're doing this recording and we'll do PopCon Fort Wayne. We're taking kind of December
Sure,
as a delay,
absolutely,
but
absolutely.
when we get back when we get in the new house, there'll be just as much room to record. And
Right.
And you'll be closer to me.
Slightly,
That's
yes.
true.
Slightly.
Yeah. You'll be a lot closer to me.
Oh yeah,
You'll be right around the corner from
That's
my
right.
house.
I mean, you're 45 minutes away from me right now.
I know.
I'm just,
Yeah.
So I'll be 30.
It's closer.
It's
It's
closer.
15 minutes closer.
It's true.
That's true, and that's almost
And
a
you know
straight
what?
shot. You don't have to make any weird turns. Okay, so on episode 184 of the Established Facts, we established that we captured the Grafhorn.
The Grafhorn. We captured the Grafhorn.
Okay. Grafhorn.
It felt very German the way we were saying it before. So the Grafhorn.
The Orn of Grafs.
The Orn of Grafs.
Okay.
Or the Grap of Horns.
Or the Grap of Horns. That's right. So, on episode 185, our Family Time Gaming episode, we have established that Newt Scamander is the Ash Ketchum of the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. Oh, all right. Well, we love you guys. Thank you so much for joining us on episode 185, and we will check you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Please visit us at www.theestablishedfacts.com and our Facebook page, facebook.com/theestablishedfacts. If you would like to support us by buying some merchandise, visit cafepress.com/castingrobot.
Bonus.